Alright guys, I'm going to do a video here on how to use wrist wraps. So wrist wraps are meant to go on the wrist. They're not a forearm accessory. As I see a lot of people do is they put on their wrist wraps where it's basically useless. So I want to show you how to make it more effective. So it's just like we're trying to create a cast for the wrist, just like if you ever like broke your arm or your ankle or whatever, and the doctors put a cast on it. It's meant to hold in place. And so the cast is going to go some of it above the joint, some of it over the joint, and some of it below the joint. So that's the same thing we're trying to do with the wrist wrap. Is we're going to try to wrap some above the joint, some over the joint, and some below it. Obviously, there are some limitations because of the length of our wrist wrap and the rules on how far you can be up above your wrist. And obviously, if you put it up too high anyways, it's going to be really hard to grip the bar. But you're only allowed to go I believe it's 2 centimeters above the wrist. 2.5 would be about an inch, so we're looking at just a little less than an inch above the wrist joint. Though it's also a little up to interpretation for referees to understand where the wrist joint is, since not all of them are experts in anatomy. But I'll go and show you how I do it, where pretty much never have an issue. And if you do have an issue, you can just pull it down a little bit so the judge will stop hassling you about it. So got my wrist wraps right here, my squats and signs wrist wraps. So what I like to do is I like to keep my wrist wraps on all the time. So what I first do is just put them on really loose, just so they're always on my wrist. So open up, just put it on. So anytime I'm between sets, I'm resting, I'm walking around the gym, I just have the wrist wraps on loose, just like that. And so the way it makes it easier to put it on is instead of putting the thumb loop on the thumb, and it can sometimes be hard to get off, I put it right here and I just grip it. So now I'm holding onto the thumb loop and squeezing my hand closed and flexing those muscles that you're going to be using on the bench press. And then once it's squeezed, then I open it up and I basically roll the wrap up like this and then start where I want to put it. So the first one I like to do is pretty high up. So you can see, so it's basically right up against the meat of my palm. Wrap that, and then I'll go a little lower. So I got a little lower, and then finish it off, making sure it's tight and pushing on the Velcro so it doesn't come off. And then once you're there, just let go of your thumb loop, and it folds out, and it's out of the way. So now you can see right here, we're above the wrist joint. We're actually right onto the palm a little bit where I can't open up my hand all the way. It's actually forcing my hand to close. And then we have some over the wrist joint about where this like white line and the red line meet. And then we have some below. Okay? So it's not all the way down here. We're trying to get as high as we can right up on the palm. So now when I close my hand, this thing is gonna stop it from going back. And for some reason you try and bend it forward, it's not going to go forward. So I got my handy dandy dumbbell handle here, and that's how you would bench the wrist wrap there. So it's going to stop you from rolling back. So right now if I try and force it, that's about as far back as it's going to go. And I actually like to put my bar really low, so even if I force it right here, you see it's not really moving. Okay? So that's what we want to do. So now if I kind of slowly open up, and you can see where that first one was right about here. So now if I take my wrap off, it was about, take the wrap off. We're wrapping about here. And on the palm you saw, it was like right about here. Okay, and there's our wrist joint. So we're not all the way down here. We're trying to come all the way up to about here. Alright, hope that helps.